Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for stopping by today. Today I'm going to be sharing a 2-for-1 kind of deal. I'm creating more than one project, but I'm only going to use one stamped piece to create that. And I'm using my favorite Essentials by Ellen Abstract Paint Strokes stamp set. And I will be using these 4 red colors, or reds and pinks. I'm kind of creating an ombre look for the holiday. Now keep in mind, you can create this exact same card project and use different colors and a different sentiment, and that will give you a completely different look. This doesn't have to be holiday. So I'm just showing you here that I am finding the center point on this piece of Essentials by Ellen linen cardstock so that I can start my stamping in the middle. And I'm starting with this kind of, it's the fatter kind of medium length paint stroke, and I'm stamping it in Hero Art's Pale Tomato ink. And I stamped it just to the right of that center line because I'm going to stamp 4 of these different paint strokes. The next color that I'm using, which is actually the lightest, is the Hero Arts Cotton Candy ink, and that color is beautiful. I don't know that I would have called it cotton candy, but it's a beautiful pink color. Now we're getting more into the super reds, and I am using Hero Arts Strawberry ink, and I'm finishing off with the darkest ink, which is the Hero Arts Red Royal. And you can see here that I have my stamped panel. Don't worry that it's a little skewed to the left. I'm going to fix that here in just a bit. So here's a look at some of the other products that I'll be using. The first up is this Essentials by Ellen Holiday word die set. Now, I like these words because they're all connected and I don't have to fuss with separate letters. And I'm actually going to die cut this out of this stamped piece. And I'm going to save all of those pieces because I'm going to make 2 cards from this one piece here. So you can see I'm just running it through my Big Shot machine, and when I pull it off, I'm going to make sure that all of those pieces stay together because I will need the center of that O as well as that joy that's there. And I've also cut several of these joy die cuts from some white cardstock as well as some more of that Essentials by Ellen linen cardstock. I'm going to stack those up to make a lot of dimension on this card. Now, if you remember my last video tutorial, I had stamped a bunch of these holly leaves from the Modern Christmas stamp set from the Essentials by Ellen line, and I had set those aside for a future date. I'm pulling out some of those to use on today's projects, and I've gone ahead and prepped 2 card bases using that same Essentials by Ellen linen cardstock, and now I'm just popping out all of the pieces so that I can get started on assembling these cards. Now, I'm going to be using both the positive and the negative die cuts from these, and I'm going to be doing an inlay technique on this first card. Now, I totally could have just laid a white die cut over the top of this, but that wouldn't have given me my second piece to make a second card. So if you like the look of this first card and you just want to stack up some white die cuts on top of your stamp piece, you could totally do that. So here I'm just adhering the middle of that O by slipping in one of these white joys, and then I adhered the middle of the O right in the center of that so that I can make sure that it's in the proper position. And now I'm going to stack up several of these joy die cuts, and I'm using my Zig 2-way glue pen to kind of adhere them together. You could use whatever adhesive you want. These are a little bit thicker, so if you wanted to use a tape runner adhesive, you totally could. I like to use a liquid adhesive because I have a little more kind of playtime with the die cuts to get them all lined up the way I want them instead of that instant stick. So when I'm stacking up die cuts, I prefer a liquid glue. Now, once I have about, I think I did 6 of these, and the 6th one was actually cut from the Essentials by Ellen linen cardstock so that it would match my card panel and my card base. Now, before I adhere my stacked up die cut in the center there, I am going to adhere these holly leaves so that they kind of come out from behind this stacked up die cut. And now I'm going to put some tape runner adhesive all along the back of this stacked up die cut, and I am going to place that right into that piece. It fits like a puzzle, and this is just kind of like a inlaid die cut technique. Most inlays are actually flat, but this has an inlay effect to it. Like I said, if you like the look and you don't need the second piece, you can actually just overlay a white die cut over it. Now, if you wanted to stack this on top, you could actually do that, and that would be like that spotlighting technique, which I think is really fun. But I thought it would be more fun to get a second card out of this because I love all of those different red colors. And I thought this would also give a great idea for something that you could mass produce. Now, this card base was cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2. I wanted it to be a little bit narrower, so I cut it down to a 3 3/4 inch width here. And I've stacked up several of those die cuts once again, and I topped it with that stamped piece in the end. So I am going to have that stacked up effect, but on the top, instead of having a white die cut, I'm going to have the piece that I cut out of my stamped piece. I'm going to use the same elements on this, so I'm using the holly leaves here, and I've attached them together, and then I'm going to place my die cut in place so that I can see where I want them. I want them to hang off the edge of the card. Now, because this card base is actually narrower than a standard A2 size card, I'll still be able to mail this in an envelope. Now, to keep this card from being too plain, I did add just a little piece of black and white striped pattern paper along the bottom of my die cut sentiment, and I'm just adding that with a little bit of tape runner adhesive. And then I'm going to adhere this onto my card front. Now, I'm going to tell you that this is about as one layer as my cards get here. I know it is not one layer, but this is a pretty flat card for me, and so I'm going to call it one layer just for my sake. But you can see I got 2 cards out of that same stamped piece. Now, you could leave these cards as is, but I felt like it just needed a pop of black. I love black on these colorful cards. I just think it gives it a little punch. And so to add that black in, I'm actually going to heat emboss a stamped sentiment onto some black cardstock. And so I'm using this To the World stamp. This is from the Essentials by Ellen Brushstroke Christmas stamp set. And I've just stamped it onto my black cardstock using some VersaFine ink. I added some ultrafine white embossing powder, and then I heat set that. And I did want to mention that I did prep the surface of my black cardstock prior to heat embossing, and I used my embossing buddy bag or whatever. I can't remember what it's called. I will have it linked in the supplies over at my blog though. And keep in mind, a lot of the key products that I use are always linked in my YouTube description, and I always have a complete list of supplies over at my blog. So if you're ever looking for something that I use, you can click on over there and you're sure to find it. So to adhere these on, I'm just using a little foam tape and I'm adhering them right over the top of my die cut sentiments. And then I am going to add a little bit of sparkle with 3 different sizes of the Pretty Pink Posh Sparkling Clear Sequins. I'm using the 8mm, the 6mm, and the 4mm. And here's a look at a bunch of the cards that I created. Now on this one, I actually used pink cardstock to cut those joy dies, and that kind of helps it to blend in with that stamped piece as well. And you can see I have a couple of variations of these cards here. I just played around with the positioning of that embossed piece or the die cut sentiment on the one where I used the stamped piece on top of that stacked up die cut sentiment, and I just love the way that these turned out. So there you have it, a quick and easy 2-for-1 holiday card idea. You could definitely change up the colors and the sentiment used on this card and create a card for any time of the year. And I just love the way that this Abstract Paint Strokes stamp set is so versatile like that. I also really love that this kind of 2-for-1 idea is a great way to crank out a bunch of cards at once. So I hope you enjoyed this idea. As always, I will have links to the featured products in the description at YouTube, but head on over to my blog because I have a complete list of supplies over there, more still shots, and more information. If you enjoyed this project, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any of my paper crafting video tutorials. As always, thanks for stopping by, thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.